guys, Nthefastlane here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to change a water pump on a 99 to 2000 SI, 94 to 2001 Acura Integra, all LS, GSR, and ITR, anything from Japan pretty much, B18 B16. So here's the water pump. It's brand new. And part number, it's a Duralast AWP-9121. And I went with this lifetime warranty. The total came to $74.89. And here's the water pump. Real nice quality. The problem I had with other water pumps was the impeller right here. It would hit the block when you would put it in, it would hit it and it couldn't spin. That's the problem I had on this one. The one that's on there right now is only about a year and a half old. It's already leaking. So that's a problem. Comes with the seal, a big O-ring that you just fit right in here. And I'll be putting some gray RTV around there, some Permatech. And that's pretty much it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jack the car up. I'm going to put a piece of wood behind the tires and I'm going to put it on jack stands. Then we're going to use the jack that we have and we're going to put it underneath the oil pan with either a block of wood or something so we don't damage the oil pan. And then we're going to have to remove the power steering line right here. We're going to have to move the motor mount and we're going to have to remove the timing cover. Now mine doesn't show a timing cover because I took the cover off, cut it. It's aftermarket. Most people will have to remove the valve cover to get the timing cover off because there's bolts right here. And the timing cover, mine's cut so you can see the cams and stuff. So keep that in mind. Now we have both jack stands underneath each side of the vehicle. We got our board under the back side of the tires. And we're getting ready to remove the manual jack underneath the front. And we'll be placing that underneath the oil pan for later use. As you can see right here, this line right here, that's antifreeze and that's leaking right out by the crank pulley. So that's just indicating that we have a bad water pump. There's really nothing else on that side other than just the water pump itself. Now there's no leaks in the head, so that just points right to the water pump. Now here's a water pump, and usually there's a quick telltale hole. There's two of them. There's one on the side right here on the outside of the timing cover. So you can see that hole right there. That hole will leak water or coolant, and it'll let you know that the seal inside the shaft right here inside this gear is leaking. Also, there's one on the bottom. Now you can't see it because you got this timing cover case covering it and it's actually right on the bottom, but this one's actually outside of the casing. So you can see that one first. But more than likely, 9 times out of 10, if you got a leak coming out of the bottom like this, then it's definitely your water pump. So two things we're going to do. We're going to remove this driver's side tire, the rim, we're going to take that off so we have easy access to the timing cover. And then secondly, underneath the engine by the transmission, we're going to go to the radiator. And there's a little screw right there, right here. We're going to remove that and put a pan under it. We're going to drain all the antifreeze. You have to do that because you'll lose it all on the ground once you pull that water pump. Next, I'm going to remove the power steering line right here with two 10mm bolts. And I'm going to have a hose handy. Just a regular fuel hose. Now that I have the power steering line bolts out, the two 10mm, I'm going to remove it and I'm going to stick this fuel line in the hole so that the gravity can't force it up and it's higher than the reservoir so I won't lose any power steering fluid. So pull it up, shove that in there, and it shouldn't leak. It might just a little bit, but it's better than just flushing out. Next, I have to loosen two bolts. There's one here and then there's one directly below it on the power steering pump. Those two, and then we have to loosen this little wing nut right here. And we'll loosen that all the way, and that's gonna release the tension on the power steering belt so we can remove it. So now that those two bolts are loose, the one here and one directly below it, now we can just back the nut off on this wing nut. And you can see it starting to drop, and that's gonna allow us to just remove the belt. Next, we just remove the belt off the pulley and let it drop down below. It would be wise just to mark each belt because they're different sizes. I'm just going to write PS for power steering, and that'll save you a lot of hassle of trying to measure them out. So here's the two bolts that we loosened on the power steering pump while I'm here. You got that one right there, and then that one right there. Now underneath all of that, if you come down here in the front, you can barely see it, but it's right there. Let me see if I can't get on another side. There we go. There's a bolt right there. It's underneath the power steering pump. So here's a better shot of it. You can see where the flashlight's on right there. You have to loosen that, but in order to loosen that, there's a nut on the bottom. I believe it's like a 12mm nut, and then right above that, it's a 10mm. But before you do that, you have to actually loosen the bolt on the pulley. So I'm going to show you that. You come on over here, and if you look straight down, it's very hard to get to. So there's the belt. That belt right there, that's the pulley. That's your AC. And if you look on the inside of that, which is right there where the light's on, inside there, that is, I believe, a 12mm, and you have to loosen that first so the pulley arm can be released. Alright, so we're underneath. Here's the crank pulley, and here's the AC belt. So we'll follow up, and you can see it right there. Let me see where the flashlight's at. There we go. That bolt right there. That's what we gotta loosen, right? When I shine the flashlight directly on it, it's too bright. So, see if I can't zoom in. There we go. This bolt right here. That's what you gotta loosen. And I believe that's a 12. So, right there. So, go ahead and loosen that first, and then adjust the other 10mm and 12mm bolt. That'll loosen it. What I'm gonna do to make life a lot easier, because that bolt's pretty hard to get to, I mean, I can get to it, but it's busting knuckles, is I'm going to remove the motor mount bolts right here on the driver's side. This one and this one, they're both 17mm, and I'm going to drop the motor down a little bit so it goes below down here. Now, I also have to remove another motor mount, and you have to do this anyway, so it's nothing new. So you got to remove this bolt right here. Underneath there is two 14mm on each side. So you're going to take this apart, that guy right there, and then when that drops, you got to take this crank pulley bolt off, and then right before that you have to take the alternator. So we're going to take the alternator bolt. On the alternator, you got one on top, which is right here. You got one on top right there. It's on the back side, and I believe it feels like a 12. And then you got one on the bottom underneath it. Okay, there's another bolt underneath on the bottom, and that should be 12 or 14, something like that. You don't have to take them completely out. You just need them so that the alternator can slide forward. Same thing with the power steering, so it can slide forward. If you take the power steering pump out, yeah, it will be a little bit easier to work on, but that's a little extra work. So there's no need to take the AC compressor off. You just loosen the belt, and that's completely out of your way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started on putting a jack right underneath here. I'm going to place a jack underneath the oil pan right here. And I'm going to have a couple pieces of wood right there, just a couple blocks, and I'm just going to stack them up, and then when I remove the motor mount, it's going to rest on the jack, and then I can lower it and raise it to wherever I need so I have easy access. So here it is. I removed the two motor mount bolts, and you can see the engine, it's tilting a lot better. It's kind of sinking down. So now I get a lot more room down under here. And you can see where the motor mount's gapped. I took out the two 14s right here. So as we go under here, I got the jack holding it up. And I already got a wrench on it right now. You can see the wrench right here. And I'll show you which bolt. It's that one right there. Right in the back right there, the pulley. So I'm going to loosen that, and then the AC belt will come right off. And then next, maybe I can even show it to you. Here is the alternator. There's the bolt I was telling you about on the bottom. It's right there. It's easy to get to. Looks like 14mm. And then one on top. Just loosen them, and you're pretty much good to go. All the belts are off. Then we'll remove the crank pulley right here. That is a 19mm bolt. So take that off. and then we'll be able to remove the timing cover. That 12mm bolt on the pulley, AC pulley's off, and we just stick the wrench down in here, and as you can see it goes all the way down and it goes to that one bolt. We got to loosen that right after that, and then the belt will come right off. Now we need to set our engine to top dead center, so right here on the cams we're going to put the top dead center marks, and those marks are right here. There's a little up arrow and an up arrow. All yours will have an up plus sign or whatever. There's also lines on the sides, but if you can't find it, just look online and see how top dead center is. Also, we're going to come down to the crank pulley, and this is how we're going to turn it, and we're going to watch up top. Now, I got a 19mm wrench on it, and I'm going to rotate it clockwise until I get the top dead center up top. Now, I'm also going to look down here, and on the crank pulley, there's 3 marks, and then there's 1 mark. We're looking for the 1 line. It's a little line on the pulley. So I'll show you what it looks like once I get it timed. Here's top dead center. Here's what it looks like on the cams. Mine's off about a half a tooth right here. You can see the lines. It's off about half a tooth. And then my plus are up. But that's normal because the head's been shaved quite a few times. But this is what you really want to look at. Both of them. But here is the 3 lines to the left on the pulley, and then you got the 1 line, and on your timing case cover you see that line. Well, you line that up with it. So that's what you're looking for right there, that 1 line on that little line in the cover. Now I'm about to put the impact gun on the 19mm right there and take it off of the crank pulley, and I'm going to remove the crank pulley. Just remove the crank pulley, and don't forget there's a little tooth, and it's on the crank. So you got to make sure you get that and don't want to lose that. It's got to be on there. It holds the crank pulley in line. Also, here's those little marks I was showing you about. If it'll focus, there we go. There's the 1 and the 3. 3 is for your ignition timing, and this one right here is for your top dead center. Here's a look underneath. We got our cover. We're going to remove all of these 10mm bolts all the way up to cover, so we can take the cover off. Here's the key I was telling you about right there, that little key. Make sure you don't lose that. I would go ahead and pull that out right now, and there's the key right there, so don't lose that. The easiest way to get to anything is up under the bottom. I know it's a little dark, but all the bolts, there's so much room under here to get to. If you work from the top, you don't have any room, so make sure you work from the bottom. Take all the casing bolts off. Alright, so I got the timing cover off. It's right there. And there's a drip right there. First thing I see. Got a drip right there. Now that's the other hole right there I was telling you about, the one on the bottom. And I'm going to inspect that a little more and see what we got going on. Well, I can't quite tell where it's coming from just yet. I'm going to have to pull the belt off. But if you look right here, on the block, there's that plug right there, and you can't see it, but I can if I get a little higher up in there. It looks like it has a little water, a little coolant, but obviously right there it's leaking, but it doesn't. It looks pretty dry, so I'm gonna have to take this belt off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loose in the timing tensioner right there. I'm gonna take that bolt off. I believe it's a 14, and it'll loosen the belt so I can get a better look at it. Now that the timing tensioner is loose, just remember the pattern. As you can see, it goes down on this side and around the timing belt, and it's straight down on this side around the timing tensioner, my bad. So all we do is just pull it straight off. Just gonna slide it off from the top over here, just little by little, and once we get it off, then we'll be able to inspect the water pump better. So that's all there is to it. Your cams might roll just a little bit, but that's okay. And now we can have a better look, and we'll be able to remove it. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, possibly 5 10mm bolts right down there on the pump, and it'll come right off. As you can see, I took all the bolts out of the water pump, and it's just dripping right now. Just let it drain till it's pretty much done. Then you'll come up here on the water pump. You'll stick a flathead screwdriver in there and kind of pry it away from the block. From what I'm seeing is the water pump itself wasn't defective. It was actually the seal around it. so that O-ring went. So the water pump's actually still good. Like I said, it's only about 1.5 to 2-year-old water pump, not too old. So that's a shame, but I already got a new one, and you might as well swap it out while you have the chance. And other things also, timing tensioner, if you want, swap it out, and your timing belt. There's no point in doing this if you already swapped it out. Now this belt right here hasn't even seen 10,000 miles, so it's a Gates Racing. It's about $100 and some belt. I'm not gonna change it out. It's actually better than the Honda belt. So as far as that, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep the tensioner, and oil pumps usually last pretty much forever unless you had some really bad sand in there in the engine, and in that case the whole engine's done. But other than that, I'm just going to let this drain, and then we'll pull off the water pump. From what I can tell is it was leaking right here, right at the bottom. Okay, so here's the little trail. You see that little trail of water? And I think that was where it was leaking, because when I pulled that bolt out on the bottom one, it was already soaked, and that was one of the first two that I pulled out, so it wasn't like I pulled the top and it leaked into it. Now grab some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, and you want to clean out all around the edge where the rubber seal is going to seal, and make sure no antifreeze is kind of lipping off and getting on it, because we're going to put some RTV on there and we want a really good seal. And what I'm going to do is make sure you got clean fingers with no oil on it. And I'm just going to kind of goop it on the back side. I know a lot of people say, oh, that's messy. I don't care. Maybe it's just a little bit messy, but guess what? I won't leak and you might. So, plus it helps it stay on the water pump when you're installing it, because these things tend to like to kind of jump around and get loose. So just run it around like that, and wipe my fingers off, and we're gonna press it in there. It has little grooves, kind of holds it in. So let's just start with the grooves. Just run it all the way around, and just like that. Okay, now that's done. I'm going to put a little more RTV on the top, and then I'm going to put a little bit of RTV on the actual block itself. Just a thin layer for here, nothing crazy, and a thin layer on the block. So a thin layer all around the water pump, and a nice thin layer all around the water pump on the block, the housing. Now that you got all your bolts in, your 10mm bolts, you're going to torque them down to 104 inch-pounds. Not foot-pounds, but inch-pounds. Okay, as you can see, there's a little arrow right there on the water, or the oil pump itself, right underneath the thing that says Yamada. And then there's an arrow on the crank pulley gear. And you just want to line that up, and now we're going to install the timing belt. Here's how you're going to start it off. You go to here, then you go around the timing tensioner, up over, and then to the cam. Then after that, you get the other cam on. Now this is loose, you leave this loose. Now the key is, to get the timing right, you have to go like one tooth past where it needs to be. So I'll show you which way you need to turn the crank. You're probably going to have to put your bolt in there. You don't want to go towards the front of the vehicle, because what'll happen is that'll pull on this side and it'll push the tensioner out, and then when you tighten it, it'll be loose. So what you want to do is you want to go towards the driver's seat or steering column, steering wheel, and you're going to pull, and that's going to pull on this side, tightening up this side a little bit, and then when you tighten this up, it'll still stay in time. Then you'll go back right to where you were, check your cams and everything. So we want the slack to be just on here. I want to pick up the slack. Now once you got it right, you can turn it a little bit, about a half a tooth towards the driver's seat. So you pick up the slack, and yours is going to have a spring on the timing tensioner. Mine doesn't. The spring's going to be right here. So I just get a flathead. I don't like to use the springs because the springs just don't get it tight enough. So I got my flathead in there, and I'll just lift up on the tensioner, and you can see it getting tight. So I'll tighten it as I'm lifting it. So now that the belt's all done, you're pretty much going to torque your timing tensioner. right there to 40 foot-pounds. And then after that, you're going to take this timing belt, holds the belt in place. It rides on the sides, so it doesn't allow it to overlap or anything. It kind of keeps it in there. Forget the actual name for this piece, but anyhow, there's a slight curved edge right here on one side. It's smoother than the other. You want the smooth curved edge towards the timing belt. As you can see, it has a little indentation where it kind of shoots out that way. You want that part out that way. So you gotta take the bolt back off, put that on there. Don't forget to do that. It kind of guides the timing belt. And when that's done, pretty much we're just going to put our case back on and the belts, and that's pretty much it. Front main seal, you take your timing belt off, take this pulley off, and you pop it right out. I already changed it all out. Everything's pretty much fresh on this motor. This motor's only got less than 10,000 miles, so I don't need to change any of it out. All that's left is to put the timing cover back on, and I've already put mine on, and just put your 10mm bolts all the way around. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4, I believe, maybe 5 at the top. Anyhow, so put that back on. When you're done with that, then we're just going to put on the crank pulley. I'm going to use an impact to put it on. Don't forget to put your key back in, right here, your key. So put the key in and put the crank pulley on. Also, like I said before, make sure you put this guard in there, the timing belt. Keeps it in there and keeps it from kind of riding out. A lot of belts can get damaged if you don't have those two. There's one on the inside and one on the outside. And when that's done, pretty much put all the belts back on and put the coolant back in, and we're ready to ride. Quick rule of thumb for how tight your timing belt should be: you should be able to turn it 90 degrees. So if you see a belt it's like this and you turn it forward, you should be able to turn it 90 degrees. If you can barely turn it maybe 45 or 40 or 30 degrees where you can barely turn the belt, then it's too tight and you're gonna get a whining noise. Now, too tight of a belt really isn't gonna, affect anything. It might put extra wear on your timing belt tensioner, less life on that, and water pump, but just having it about 90 degrees is really good because it's a quieter belt and it's not gonna slip off. Easiest way to tighten your alternator is stick your flathead right here, right in there, and then pull forward, and then tighten the bolt right under there. Now that the crank pulley's installed, make sure you put the belts on in the proper order. First belt that goes on is your alternator. The second belt that goes on is your AC compressor belt. And then the third belt, on the very small one right here on the pulley, that's going to be your power steering belt. Come over here and you can see that bolt right there on the pulley right next to the yellow lettering. It's right there. It's a 12. Don't tighten that first. That's your AC belt. You're going to come over here and first tighten this little guy right there. See the socket is on it? Tighten that. Nice little tension on it, and you can turn it about 90 degrees. And then you're going to come back over and tighten that 12mm bolt I was just telling you about right there. That guy right there. So tighten that. Then when you're done with that, all you do is come over here and tighten this wing nut until it tightens up the belt till you get it to the right tension. And then you tighten this bolt right here, and then the one right on the bottom right there. And then that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead, comment, like, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out my Facebook page, website, and Android app. All that can be found on my YouTube channel in the About Me section. I'm Nthefastlane, and I'll see you guys next time.